Spectrum News 1 presents LA Times The Envelope Roundtables, brought to you by Apple TV Plus's The Morning Show, for your Emmy consideration in all drama series categories.
This is the Los Angeles Times series, The Envelope, our discussions with the most creative minds in entertainment. Cate Blanchett is executive producer and star of FX's Mrs. America, which goes inside the heated battle for the soul of the women's movement in the 1970s. Cynthia Erivo stars in HBO's The Outsider, portraying a uniquely skilled private detective in the crime thriller based on the Stephen King novel. Hugh Jackman stars in HBO's Bad Education, the ripped-from-the-headlines tale of a school superintendent who gets caught in the largest public school embezzlement in U.S. history. Nicole Kidman stars and executive produces HBO's Big Little Lies, a story that tackles the lives of small-town women embroiled in a murder case. Regina King stars in HBO's Watchmen, a series based on a DC comic that sheds new light on racist violence in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Sandra Oh serves as the star and executive producer of BBC America's Killing Eve, a spy thriller in which Oh plays an investigator on the trail of a deadly assassin. Jeremy Strong stars as the not-so-prodigal son in HBO's Succession, an extremely dark comedy that explores the power, greed, and betrayal of a family wrestling for control of a media empire. Kerry Washington is an executive producer and co-lead in HBO's Little Fires Everywhere, a suburban drama that examines issues of race, class, and parenting. Hi everyone, I'm LZ Granderson, culture columnist for the Los Angeles Times. Every year, just before the Television Academy begins casting its votes for the Emmy Awards, the LA Times gather the stars of TV for a series of discussions about their work. But this year, it's not like any we've ever had before. The discussion you're about to see happened over Zoom in mid-May. The coronavirus-related lockdown was entering its third month, but the mass protests that followed the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd hadn't happened yet. While self-isolating at home, our guests reflected on their shows and their apprehension about what working on set will look like once Hollywood goes back to work. From the LA Times, here's the Envelope Emmy Roundtable, Drama. Hello, I'm LZ Granderson, culture columnist for the Los Angeles Times, and today I'm so excited to introduce our guests for some of television's top dramatic programming. Welcome to the Envelope Drama Roundtable. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to get right to it. I'm so excited to do this because so many of your shows deal with the themes of belonging and trying to find your place in this world. You know, you have Kate's character who's trying to find a well-defined place for women to belong in society. Jeremy, your character is trying to figure out how to fit in his father's company. Cynthia, you're from The Outsider, and you are literally an outsider. So to begin this conversation, I want to start with Kerry. And I just want to know what's really driving your character in Little Fires Everywhere. Is it trying to fit in, or is it trying to find peace with the fact that you don't?
I don't think either. I think what's driving Mia is the determination to carve a path for herself, because I think she has decided that she doesn't belong in any traditional sense. And so her fierce commitment to live this kind of unapologetic life outside of the boundaries of normal culture is because she's created a world where she belongs just to her daughter, where they belong to each other.
Wright is your real last name. Warren was my brother's name. I had a fantastic brother, but he died. And then my parents disowned me, and you were my everything.
What about you, Cynthia?
I think the thing that's probably driving Holly is the search for the truth, no matter what that might be. She just is an outsider because of the way she processes things, the way she speaks to people, the way she can communicate with others. She finds it quite difficult in the traditional sense to communicate with people. And I think her journey is about finding ways to find connections.
I can tell you what day May 1st lands on 204 years from now, faster than any computer on Earth. I can look at a skyscraper for 2 seconds from a speeding car and tell you within 6 inches how tall that building is. And I can not only recite the lyrics of every rock and roll song written from 1954 to the present day, but I can tell you which Billboard chart position they were in week to week before they fell off completely. But you know what? I don't listen to music because I don't like it.
She's new to me in that way because I've never had to figure out a person like that before. And I think working on her was really interesting because I tried to find a way in which, because I do believe that she's on the spectrum, and I wanted to make sure that that did not mean that she didn't have the humanity that I believe everybody has. So trying to put that forward, as well as the way in which she communicates, is probably the driving force. It's about finding her humanity and her connection to people, really.
Jeremy, your character really seemed to struggle just trying to find his place both within the company, but also just in life itself.
I think sort of the engine behind this character is in the disparity between who he is and who he wants to be. I've always loved the sort of modern anti-hero, and I think of Kendall Roy as a sort of non-hero, unhero, someone who's been anointed with this power and by birth and station is required to act heroically, but he's not equipped to do so, and he's unable to do so. So he's given this burden that he can't carry. So it's kind of a heavy as the head that wears the crown, damaged as the head that wears the crown condition. And he's sort of caught in this endless struggle, outer and inner struggle, which is something I, can identify with and care about.
My father is a malignant presence, a bully and a liar, and he was fully personally aware of these events for many years and made efforts to hide and cover up. He had a twisted sense of loyalty to bad actors like Lester McClintock, disregard for the safety of migrant workers, non-union and union workers, and for vulnerable performers and guests. My father keeps a watchful eye over every inch of his whole empire.
Aspirationally, as an actor, falling short of a mark is I think something that one feels, or I certainly feel. I was doing a Conor McPherson play years and years ago in a storefront on 39th Street. And Conor McPherson wrote in the liner notes that his characters have been summoned by God to the stage to tell the truth. And I thought that was such a beautiful ideal to sort of strive for, and one
to
that
fail by.
and fail by. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's like, how do you live up to that?
Yeah.
Kate, your character is really interesting because, in hindsight, a lot of people can look at her as sort of the villain, if you will. But at that particular time, she truly was representing a different perspective and wasn't necessarily a gender traitor, if you will. How did you find balance within that, with knowing modern eyes were going to be looking on a character that was from decades prior?
Yes. I didn't know anything about my character. I thought I knew a lot. Like Nicole, I've heard you talk a lot about your mother and growing up with a second wave feminist mother. And, I identified as a feminist. I thought it was about equality. And so I thought I didn't know it was a polarizing issue in the States. And I also thought that the Equal Rights Amendment was ratified. So it was a huge journey for me to discover that, in fact, there was an equal and opposite movement in second wave feminism that was the traditional women who felt marginalized by the social revolution. And that in fact, the notion of equality in the 1970s was more bipartisan than it is now. And so that across party lines, there were a whole lot of Republican feminists. And that it was Phyllis Schlafly, who I played, who actually changed the language around feminism that my generation inherited. And that all of that kind of pejorative language around being a feminist and what our ambitions were, and the fact that if you were identified as a feminist, you were a man hater or anti-family, that actually came out of the rhetoric of Phyllis Schlafly, who was really protecting what she saw as a communist threat. And then, in fact, she was the outsider. She was the underdog. And the notion of equality and what the feminists were pushing for in the 1970s was, in fact, much more mainstream than I think it is today.
Under our current system, in a case of a breakup of marriage, the mother gets the children. Now, who wants to trade that in for a so-called equality whereby each parent gets one child?
The ERA does not say that in the case of divorce, each parent gets one child.
Oh, yes, it does. It says you have to interpret things absolutely equally.
Well, what if she has one child? Would it be cut in half?
Oh, well, you can joke all you want. I mean, the courts would decide, as they did with a recent Washington, D.C. case, where 3 children were given to the father, and the mother had to pay child support.
What was the name of the
case? Say that
case?
was an advance for women. But the larger issue is that the ERA erodes the institution of marriage, not
Cite
just in
the
divorce.
case.
The case?
So it was quite challenging to play someone who was, and Hugh, you must have found this too with your character, someone who you can see is so what their dubious achievements are so maligned. You then have to reverse engineer and work out what drives them. And so I found it really challenging to play someone who, if you look at what they have achieved, you would think that is so far away from my set of values, and to try and find the points of similarity, what was their childhood like? What are they deeply frightened of in order to behave in such a polarizing way? I found it really challenging, actually.
By the way, Kate, thanks for mentioning that. And I emailed you last night just to say how blown away Deb and I have been by the series and all the different perspectives, female perspectives you get. I think there's a weight of responsibility added to it, which I actually find challenging. So I find that you have to have a really good reason to want to make the movie, to want to play the character. And obviously we did.
You stole from the schools, Pam, from the taxpayers, from the kids we're supposed to serve. I mean, this kind of behavior goes beyond the bounds of immoral. It's cruel. It's heinous. It's sociopathic even.
Sociopathic? What?
Shameless self-interest, the unstable personality, the parade of rotten marriages.
Frank.
But I think in the same with playing Frank Tassone, our job is to show every side of it, to show, yes, the background, why this happens, because all of us are fallible. All of us are susceptible to doing things we're not proud of. All of us, if we look back in our life, have probably held positions that we completely disagree with now. How is it possible that someone like Frank could go so far off from being a very respected, clearly motivated, out of service to others sort of human being, to being in prison for 4.5 years? I find the cautionary tale of that is fascinating,
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think that circumstance really derails us, and that it's and that this whole kind of social media universe that whether we participate in or not, but we found ourselves in, it's a place of judgment, very quick judgment. And that even though recent history can seem so far away, it informs, where we are now. And so it's so important to understand it with an open mind, because I don't think we're all heroes of our own universe.
Right.
It'd have to be probably I Love Lucy, because that was where television began. It's where reality television began. And she's one of the most extraordinary televisual performers ever.
If I could have been in the cast of any show ever, this is going to sound very silly, but it probably would have been Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because I was obsessed when I was younger. And I don't know if I would... a Vampire Slayer of sorts I probably would have been, but I don't know that it would have been Buffy. Or maybe if I had to play one of the characters, it would have been Willow.
If I could have been cast in any TV show, I think the number one show for me would have to be Fawlty Towers, a British comedy series that starred John Cleese. I think they only made maybe 10 episodes, maybe 8 episodes of it. I would have seen each of those episodes 50 times. And John Cleese's character, Basil Fawlty, that would be my number one character to play.
Regina, you know, in keeping up with this theme of taking a moment in history and breathing life for the modern times, you know, Watchmen is very, very interesting in the sense that you're kind of in an alternative universe, but you use a very modern day universe conversation in terms of race relations and what happened in the past and how that influences what's happening today. Can you talk a little bit about your character, and was that the part of this story that attracted you to that character the most?
What was really attractive to me about the character is this, which I think is something that so many humans experience and don't realize they're experiencing, is this trauma that she's inherited. And she doesn't even realize that she has inherited that. So much of her life right now in this moment is informed by that trauma that she's inherited.
I know why you didn't call me.
Why?
You were mad that my sitter bailed and you had to suffer through Black Oklahoma without having someone to roll your eyes at.
Sitter bailed?
Yes.
Well, you and Cal missed out, because Black Oklahoma was delightful.
You are not allowed to call it that.
And she's kind of created this world where being an outsider is actually a safe space to be. She finds comfort in that. She finds comfort in just having created this little safe space with her family, and then having an identity outside of that, with that small nucleus that's her family, and just navigating that, and then it all exploding all in a matter of a few hours. You know, when she loses someone that she thinks is very dear to her, and, you know, depending on the person that's watching, you know, I think that he still does hold a dear place in her heart. But when you are struggling with discovering someone being not who you thought they are, and you still can't change those emotions that you have inside, that becomes, as far as that actor playing that, it just, for lack of a better word, it's fun because it is a challenge. You are digging into all of these little places to find the nuances to make this alternative universe, this alternative character ring true to the real world, if that makes any sense at all. It does in my head.
It does in your performance too. So
thank you.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
One of the things that I really love in watching your performance, Regina, as well as Carrie's and Sandra's, is the fact that you're representing minorities in a way that hadn't really been able to be represented before. And what I mean by that is I'm used to seeing women of color be demonstrative. And you perform these characters with such great nuance. And I'm just curious, I'll start with Sandra. The nuance of Eve, the complications of her, how refreshing is it to be able to just give a look without having to say much and be able to express so much and not have people say, can you give me more?
And I think what you're speaking about is that you're seeing representation moving into the central field. And the nuance is just the complicated texture of a full-fleshed character. And when you're saying the demonstrative, I interpret that as sometimes it can be stereotypical. And I will say, even though Regina's piece is actually very clearly about race, many of the characters I have played, which I am very interested in moving through and beyond, have not been about my character's race necessarily. And I know myself, as my authorship of my own work has grown, I've always been trying to infuse more pieces of my character's ethnicity and cultural background.
What the hell are you doing here?
I'm sorry. You texted me.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. It didn't make a lot of sense. Something about loo paper, beer.
Oh God.
I was a bit worried, if I'm honest, so I tracked your phone. You know, you really shouldn't leave your front door open considering the amount of people that have tried to kill you.
At the very top of season 3 in Killing Eve, you see Eve in New Malden, which is actually the largest gathering of Koreans outside of Korea in Europe. And is in New Malden. It's in New Malden. Anyway, but I wanted it to be set there, and I wanted it to be set in a place where Eve could try and disappear for a while. It was just a small bit of the show, but I felt that I wanted to try and bring the flavor of that, because everyone had, like, especially for someone like me, we carry our culture, we carry our history, and typically, white Hollywood does not write our culture.
Carrie?
I think it's a really exciting extension of the conversation you were having with Hugh and Kate earlier, this idea that we have a tendency in our representation of humanity to be really reductive and to want to put people in these kind of limited boxes of identity. And I think one thing that was exciting for us on Little Fires was that the character of Mia in the novel, the beautiful novel by Celeste Ng, she was written ambiguously with regard to race. And so our choice to make Mia Black in some ways represented a kind of progress that we talk about a lot in the business, and sort of, colorblind approach to casting of, like, anybody, that character could be any race. So let's think about other races that character could possibly be, which I think is what progress looked like maybe in this business decades ago. The second layer of what makes that matter is then what Sandra was talking about, is being in the writer's room and saying, okay, if we're going to make her Black, how does that require the story to shift? What are the elements that we can pull out and grow? What's unique about her experience that may deepen what's in the novel or evolve forward something that's in the novel? So I think it's really moving to me to hear everybody talk, because I think many of us do play characters that the rest of the world would want to stereotype, whether it's on Succession or Phyllis Schlafly or somebody like Mia, or somebody on the spectrum, like, the beautiful work that you're doing, Cynthia. All of us play these characters that society could perceive of as other, and decide to limit in the way that we deal with each other's depth as human beings and complexity. So that's our job, right? Like, that is our job as storytellers, is to make people take pause and realize that human beings, no matter who we are, we're complicated and rich and deep. And whether we look like you or don't look like you, there are elements to our story that are unique and precious. And that's what life looks like, no matter who you are or where you're born. That's literally our job.
I chose you, and everything is on the line for me.
We have an opportunity to do something truly meaningful.
We're the morning show. We can do anything.
It's my whole life. You can't ask me to not fight for that.
We're in the middle of an epic rebirth.
From the outside looking in, socioeconomics tend to put up roadblocks in terms of us being able to identify with one another. And I'm curious, Nicole, your character Celeste, on the outside looking in, she seems to be fine, but she's got a lot of internal things going on that means she is struggling. How is it playing a character who, in a lot of ways, represents a lot of people who have a certain socioeconomic status?
I think for us in making a second season of Big Little Lies was trying to deal with the aftermath and go, what is the truth? Because I think a lot of people wanted the female characters to come out healed and strong and capable and all of these things. That would have been satisfying. And the truth is, particularly with somebody like Celeste, that's not the case. It's not like suddenly he's gone. It's now I have to actually deal with all of those emotions that come with the loss, that come with the idea of now I'm a single mother taking care of 2 little boys that are going to have a really rough road ahead. And what does it mean to still not be healed? Because it's about I still want him. I can look at him from a distance and remember only the good times, and that addiction to a person and the way in which that plays out is really fascinating to me.
This is a serious situation and the boy needed stitches, so I need to know. Who instigated the fight? Was it you, Max? Was it?
Saying stuff about Dad. And he was picking on Ziggy.
So what? So the 3 of you attacked him? You ganged up on him? You can't do that. Violence is not the answer. Look at me. You think it is?
So much of it for us was trying to be truthful and authentic with what was to come, but still have it amidst an entertaining sort of genre. But also wanting to just say something about being able to explore all these different cultures and ideas as a producer now, being in the position to stand up and go, let's get these shows made that are not necessarily based in America, but we have a show right now that we're looking to do in Hong Kong that has a lead Korean female, has a lead Chinese female, has a lead American and a lead British. And that future is so exciting, but my gosh, with what's happened to the world right now, it's going to get harder and harder. And that's terrifying. So being able to, all of us, constantly say how needed it is and how those, but we've, and trying to find the directors that can also tell those stories with truth. And we were looking for the perfect director for that, and we found Lulu Wong. And so to have access to her is fantastic. But we need people like Sandra, going, this is how you have to adjust the writing and this is how you have to change it and help. But I'm just scared right now because I'm like, how do we make these shows? Which I'm sorry to bring up because I know that's a bummer, but I'd love to know what everyone else is planning and doing.
It's like there is equal force. Like as soon as things also start opening up, we're going to start making this stuff. There is this other force that comes in called a pandemic that seems to be stopping the flow of making things in a different way. And I'm interested in our challenge of getting back into production. Basically, how we increase an interior type of confidence and resilience and clarity in what is essential to make. It is up to, I think, us who have some ability and knowledge to be able to impart, to try and find these different avenues. And I think it takes the time, actually this time, for the clarity and a vision to hopefully be burst and to come forward.
It's frightening because there's so many opportunities. We've all been working so hard to create now these paths and just trying to keep them still open and forging ahead is like, okay, but I suppose that's why I was so excited to just have conversation because I haven't had a lot of conversations about what the future holds and how do we keep doing this because we're in positions of power right now. And wanting to use that responsibly and wanting to use that creative power to go, how do we keep supporting and moving this forward when there is these massive hurdles again?
We have been all fighting to kind of open up.
Yeah.
Don't want them to retract.
There is something really wonderful as a performer who's in music and acting. I'm watching musicians literally take the gear and shift in a different way. So people are finding really wonderful creative ways to still make music, to still make ways to connect with others in that way. And so I think it's not necessarily how, I guess, it's not necessarily where we're going to make it or when. It's sort of how do we shift and create something that just feels and may look different to what we're used to. And that way we get to open the doors to who we're talking to and who we create with. The fact that we're all on this right now means that we get to have a conversation with each other, which may not necessarily have happened before, where we might be in our rooms, but we're in the same room together now, right?
Well, first of all, Cynthia, I want to hear the music immediately. So if you wouldn't mind just singing one of those songs now, it'd be great. And our job as storytellers, being part of a story, is to unite, to add meaning, to melt the hearts of an audience. And we are currently in a situation I've never experienced in my life, where the whole world is sort of experiencing something unifying. Of course, the experience is very different for different people, and you know that's something we need to really talk about. But somehow the whole world is dominating our thinking and our feeling and our problem solving. And I think what you're saying, Nicole, there's obviously going to be restrictions in filmmaking. It's obviously going to have to start smaller. We're going to have those, restrictions. But in terms of storytelling and opportunities, who knows? Because we need to make sense of what's happening as a planet, as a human race. And I think that's part of our job. I find that exciting.
For those of you who have ongoing series, do you imagine seeing some of these storylines in terms of what the globe is dealing with right now, finding its way into your stories, or do you think you're going to try and keep them separate?
That's a great question. We're in the midst of digging in. I mean, that's right now something that I know, different people I've talked to with their ongoing shows are going, do we write this in or do we not? I suppose that's like, what are you going to do, Jeremy? We're all hanging for that third season.
Yeah.
Please.
Please.
We're addicted.
I think it's so interesting because Nicole and Hugh, what we've all been working on, in a way, there's a kind of decadence. There's a kind of end times decadence in the material and a kind of moral rot and erosion happening, and now we're experiencing this reckoning in the world. I think our show, I don't know what Jesse Armstrong is planning to do. I know that I have lobbied hard to set it very squarely in this moment that we're in, and yeah, I guess not that we have this coming, but I guess in a sense, and Nicole, you sort of were totally immersed in this world, but part of our show touching on the sort of Fox News parallel and this thing that was a vector for just pumping, toxic, pathogenic stuff into the groundwater, and that groundwater is what we're now left with. Not that had anything directly to do with this pandemic, but it sort of feels somehow connected, and I would think that the writers have to write now from this place that we're in. Surely it's the stuff of great and real drama.
How do you weave a tragedy like this into a narrative without looking as if you're exploiting it? I remember the early days in which we saw films that were tied to 9/11. There was a lot of pushback because people felt it was too soon.
If your question is about like when will we start to film scenes where people have masks on at the supermarket, I don't know, but I think the deep emotional work of what the pandemic is doing to and on and for all of us is starts now. Like that starts to be reflected in the material now because we don't have a choice. Like we're going to be bringing our vision and our hearts to the work that we're doing, whether it's in the writer's room or the edit room. So it's already there. It's going to be there. This need to kind of deal with our hearts breaking down or breaking open or breaking in whatever ways they're breaking. Like that's going to start living in the work yesterday for sure.
I think it's a great question. We need to be bold. I was just last week watching a movie that I'd never seen before, a 1942 movie, To Be or Not to Be. I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen it. It's Carol Lombard and Jack Benny. It's a classic. And it was made in 1941, actually, and it's a satire about the invasion, Hitler's invasion of Poland, set in Poland. And when it came out in 1942, it got pretty much eviscerated in that exact question you asked. This is too soon. This is not funny. How could you make this movie? And of course, history now sees that movie as being so bold and really highlighting, because he had problems with censors in Poland all over, that he was using whatever means he could to highlight the world to what was happening, and it happened to be comedy. And it would have been difficult, I'm sure, to watch. It was a bold, bold choice. And history has seen that as a really great bet. Like, it was a great choice. And I think ultimately, if your goal is to illuminate, to educate, to melt people's heart, if that's your goal, that will come through. If you want to exploit, if you want just eyeballs, or if you just want to use people's fear or conspiracy theories, for example, to just get ratings, that will come through as well in history. So I think it is a time to be bold. I think we should be making those stories, but it's got to be for the right reason.
I feel like my lost opportunity in life was to do like a version of Reading Rainbow, where I got to be LeVar Burton reading all those amazing stories. So
I would absolutely have been in the show Fame, and I would have played Coco, played by the wonderful Erica Gimple.
Well, I just would have liked to have been in Seinfeld, but that would never have happened. So I would have played anyone. Kramer.
Hugh, as an openly gay person myself, I looked at Frank Tassone and I wasn't quite sure if I hated him or if I sympathized with him. Why do you think he committed the crimes that he did? Because it gave the gays a really bad look.
I heard in my research an interview with him, and he said when he first went for an interview for a superintendent job in Long Island, he said that he was gay, and the guy gave him the interview said, I don't think you should tell me that. And so he sort of retracted it within the interview. And so he got that message back in whenever that was, I guess, late 80s, 90s, that there are still some places where that's not okay.
So, does your wife come with you on these things, or?
Oh,
is she back in New York? Or?
No, my wife passed away.
Oh. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It was a long time ago. It was before I had you, even.
And we forget now in 2020 where it seems so fine. But I think even in the beginning of 2000s, there were some places, stuffy law firms where you just weren't going to become partners. So I don't think he was completely closeted, but he certainly kept it hidden from work. And I feel for him. I think that would have been a really, really tough decision, because he started off wanting to make a difference, wanted to get into public education. He, got his doctorate from Columbia, and he became one of the most successful superintendents in the country, with the highest contract, I think, in the United States, and took that school to number 4. It was on its way to being number 1. I think he was a perfectionist, and what started as a little small thing, like a little lunch, $30 lunch, that he went to the business office and said, oh, listen, let me give everybody a check for that. And the business office said, oh, listen, don't worry about it. You work 14 hours a day, let it go. Just that little chink became quicksand. And before he knew it, he was drowning. I mean, they were on the front page of every newspaper for a year. There's no point doing the movie just to, tar and feather someone and drag them through the streets and throw stones at them again. It's only point in doing it is to think, okay, what in my life have I kind of been a little edgy about, a little unethical about?
Don't you also feel like every great character needs some secrets? Like you don't even know who your character is till you know what your secrets are. In some ways, sometimes.
100%.
I like when I've already, when you're doing a series, have already started, and then you discover your character's secret or one of your character's secret along the way, and you had an idea of where you were going in your mind, and the writer threw that loop at you, and you're like, how am I going to navigate this? How am I going to weave this in? And that's always kind of exciting and challenging at the same time. But when you get on the other side of it together, because I look at us all the storytellers, not just the creators, the actors, the cameramen, everyone is part of the storytelling process. And when you've discovered that secret and you didn't know going into it, and you get on the other side of it and see the finished product and the arc that secret led you on is satisfying.
You know what would be amazing? I don't think that we have time. I would love to know, and Carrie, I got to tell you, I'm going to ask you this eventually. Like, what is everyone's acting secret? But we all have something. I'm not necessarily going to spill my beans here. Yeah. But when we're talking about secret, right? Like Carrie is talking about, she has a secret underlying kind of emotional rhythm that is all her own. She's on set, she's doing her own thing. It's all here, but it's all here, but it's translating out, and in only the most personal of situations, which this is not necessarily, there are some people, everyone here, I would like to know what is that underlying heartbeat that is underneath each of those characters that is coming from your own, not that everyone works the same way, but is coming from your own material. That is constantly fascinating.
But it reminds me though of an interview I saw with Michelle Pfeiffer a couple of years ago where she was saying, like, I don't like to talk about my process because also I don't know that I always understand my process because there's something about it that's magic. Like every character is different. Every character requires, we each have our different toolboxes and our approaches. But at the end of the day, it's like, what is going to be the alchemy that's going to unlock each story? That, each character, each narrative requires its own rich ritual and like willingness to climb a new mountain. So it's also like ever evolving.
And each director demands something different, which I find the great sort of journey is that, okay, where do we go and who am I now going to be in a partnership with? Because the director is so much a part of, if you have a great one, so much a part of the construction of it, and them understanding how you work is part of the magic. Because if you're not understood in that way, then you got to really go it alone, which I find much tougher. I much prefer to get someone that goes, oh, okay, I know how to work with you. That's glorious.
That a great director can help you tap into places that you didn't even know existed in the moment.
Yep. I just want to say Regina King did that for me at Scandal because she's an exceptional director. I was like,
yes, we do. We're about to offer you something, Regina.
I love you, ladies.
Last question for you before we go. Talking about that, what has it been like over the years watching so many more women be behind the lens and not just in front of it? And let's start with Cynthia.
Well, you know what it's been for me particularly is inspirational. Both Regina and Carrie will know because I've reached out to them for my little flicks. So if we do end up going into a second series, one of the things I really required was that there were more women behind the camera and that there were more women that looked like me, because there's this for me. There is a lonely thing in that on this particular series, the woman who is of color is me, and it follows through to the end. And what I wanted was to be able to share that with people who would understand what it is to be a woman of color, what it is to be a Black woman, and women who understood what it takes to create the detail that this kind of woman needs, because it's tough when no one else understands that language. And to know that there is the opportunity to do that, to even ask for it, means that there's a bit of oxygen, there's a bit of air. I can breathe easier. It's a wonderful thing to be able to see women behind the camera, the rigor. On Harriet, we had women, as far as the eye could see. It was my director, it was my producer.
I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but you have made it 100 miles to freedom all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Harriet Tubman. And you're being able to share, there's a kismet that you have when you can share something with other women that creates what you see on screen. And I think that is only going to feed into the creation that we get to make, really and truly. Yeah, it's wonderful.
And by the way, can I just say on behalf of Jeremy, thank you very much, ladies, for having us here as part of this. This is
Hugh, when we got these calls to do it, and LZ can attest to this, I said, we need more men in forum.
Isn't it nice to get to the point where you say, we need more men?
And it's funny, in my career, the very first job I did was with a woman, and I just finished doing a film with Lisa Joy. It was so amazing to work with her. I cannot wait. I know Nicole, and I know so many of you have been really pushing that, and I find it incredibly inspiring. And just little things. There was I haven't done a lot of them in my career, but there was a sex scene in the movie, and doing that with a female director is completely different. Like particularly with Lisa, that whole thing was completely different.
And
I don't want to give away.
Different how, Hugh. By the way, I love Lisa Joy. I think she is just amazing.
She's a genius. So Lisa said, I watched every single sex scene that has ever been done in Hollywood, literally every one in 100 years. And she said, I could not see one where I could actually imagine the woman having an orgasm.
Right.
She said every position, the thing, I was like, no, it's not working. So she said, that's my goal. So I don't want to spoil the scene, but there you go.
Nice. All right, Lisa.
That's a great way to end this conversation. I could talk to you guys all day. Thank you so much for your time, your insight, your generosity is very much appreciated. This was the Envelope Drama Roundtable. I'm so glad you guys were with us. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your work.
Be well. Be well.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You're amazing.
Bye, guys.
Bye. To every one of you.
Do we now? How do we get out of here?
Leave.
How?
Take care. Bye.
You don't have to leave. You can stick around if you want to.
Bye.